Greetings and welcome to our artist conversation for the 31st annual James A. Porter Colloquium. My name is Jade Elizabeth Flint and I am a 2020 graduate of the Art History program at Howard University and currently a graduate student in the master's program in art history at Tulane University. I also had the opportunity to serve as panel co-chair alongside Dr. Harvey and lead research for this session. It is my pleasure to introduce artist Willis Bing Davis and curator Akili Tomassino. Willis Bing Davis was born in Greer, South Carolina, but grew up in Dayton, Ohio, where he lives today. He attended DePaul University in Greencastle, Indiana, graduating in 1959. He also attended the School of the Dayton Art Institute and received his Master of Education degree in 1967 from Miami University, Oxford, Ohio. Davis also pursued graduate study at Indiana State University from 1975 to 1976. His career as an educator includes teaching in the Dayton public school system, teaching at DePaul and Miami universities, and 20 years at Central State University in Wilberforce, Ohio. While at CSU, Dr. Davis was also chair of the art department and director of the Paul Robeson Cultural and Performing Arts Center. He also served as an artist in residency for the School of Education at the University of Dayton and visiting scholar at Wright State University. He is co-chair of the National Conference of Artists. Davis' record as an artist and curator is equally illustrious, including exhibitions at Studio Museum of Harlem, American Craft Museum, Renwood Gallery, Maryland Institute College of Art, Savannah College of Art and Design, Anacostia Museum, National Museum of Art of Senegal, West Africa, United States Embassy, Accra, Ghana, and Museum of Applied Arts, Frankfurt, Germany. His art can be found in public and private collections in the USA, England, China, Japan, France, Australia, plus Senegal, Ghana, Nigeria, Nambia, and Gabon on the continent of Africa. Bing's 40 plus years of teaching art included elementary, high school, and universities. His creative and innovative approach to teaching, learning, and human development through the arts resulted in his receiving state, national, and international acclaim, including Ohio Art Educator of the Year, Individual Artist of the Year, Ohio Designer Craftsman of the Year, and the Ohio Governor's Irma Lazarus Lifetime Achievement Award in 2009, the highest art award given in the state of Ohio. He participated in the Stop Asking, We Exist exhibition of the African American craft art at the Society for Contemporary Crafts in Pittsburgh and was curator for the popular and groundbreaking exhibition Uncommon Beauty in Common Objects, the legacy of African American craft art that toured the United States in the mid 1990s, organized by the National Afro American Museum and Cultural Center in Wilberforce, Ohio. Since retiring from teaching in 1998, he has opened the Davis Art Studio and Ebenia Gallery in the historic Wright Dunbar Business District, where fine arts and crafts are produced by Bing, Andrea, and son, Derek Davis. Youth and community art and cultural activities are coordinated through Shango, Center for the Study of African American Art and Culture. Akili Tomassino commences as Associate Curator of Modern and Contemporary Art at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in April 2021. An advocate of emerging artists, scholar of the 20th century avant-garde, and leader in arts education, he is completing a PhD through Harvard University, where he earned his BA and MA. Previously, Tomassino was Associate Curator of Modern and Contemporary Art at the Museum of Fine Arts, Boston, where he curated the Banner Project, Lauren Halsey, Lucian Freud, The Self-Portraits, the Banner Project, Robert Pruitt, and Mural, Jackson Pollock, Katharina Gross. As a curatorial assistant at the Museum of Modern Art, New York, he curated projects 107 Lone Wolf Recital Corps, which he reunited the multidisciplinary performance collective founded in 1986 by Terry Atkins. Tomassino was a Fulbright Fellow in Paris as well. He serves on the external advisory group of the Atlanta University Center, Clark Atlanta University, Morehouse College, and Spelman College, Art History, and Curatorial Studies Collective, and the advisory committee of the Katona Museum of Art in Katona, New York. His philanthropic endeavors included the Prep for Prep Sotheby's Summer Art Academy, which Tomassino founded in 2017 to give New York City high school students of color a window into the art world, and PANA projects, an arts and education initiative within the Caribbean. It's a pleasure to welcome Bing Davis and Akili Tomassino.
Good morning, Bing. Let's begin with the theme. Thanks. Driving the Porter. Let's begin with the theme driving the Porter Colloquium. How do you define diaspora in your art process?
Well, you know what? I look at the diaspora as a connecting link to any one of African descent, and no matter where you find them in the world. And my art is always addressing that, but through a contemporary urban experience, but it's always having that connection. And so I view those that I have met, those that I have not met, that any one of African descent, any place in the world is a part of the diaspora.
It's a very large family.
Yes, very large family. And that's what gives me the confidence for living.
Could you tell us about your early and lucid vocation to become an artist as early as the 5th grade, as I understand it?
Yes, indeed. As a matter of fact, I grew up in a small neighborhood, African neighborhood in Dayton, coming in from Greer, South Carolina at just a couple months of age. But fortunately, the neighborhood was so small that much of the extended family concept was still there. People coming from Georgia, South Carolina, Mississippi, and living here in Ohio, living in Dayton. And so I had an earlier nurturing of art, music, dance, and drama from this small community of about 100 families. And so there were the church, the playground, the community center, and home all within a 2.5 block. And so I had this nurturing earlier on to the point that by the 5th grade, I had already been identified as being the next star and athlete coming out of our neighborhood, which had many great athletes. But I always knew that it was art for me. I could learn to shoot a basket and jump over a bar and catch a football. But art was something that gave me the greatest satisfaction. And it really was strange that Mrs. Kidd's 5th grade class, when she asked, okay, as we start the school year, I want everybody to stand by their desks and collect their thoughts, take a breath, and tell the rest of the class what you're going to be when you grow up. And so I took that as an opportunity to finally tell my posse, my boys, what I really wanted to do, even though I was this star athlete. And so I stood up and took that breath and felt the sweat running down my sides and tried to say, I'm gonna be an artist when I grow up. I'm gonna be an artist. And the silence and the snickering. And I looked around and my boys were laughing at me and the girls were snickering at me. So at recess, I went around to everyone that was laughing and says, you're my friend and all that, but I'm gonna start playing with you. I'm gonna start playing with people who believe I can be something. I'm gonna be an artist when I grow up. But yeah, I made an early commitment and I've been asked why. And what I found early on, that when I was making something, when I was doing something with my hand and my imagination and things that I could manipulate, there was an inner satisfaction that as we got older, that make you lose track of time, don't know you're hungry, don't know you're tired, you're just pleased. And so I love that feeling of when I was creating. And so I just knew that somehow I'm gonna have to find a way to do this for all my life. And so I made that commitment early and stuck with it, but I had a lot of nursing support. Maurice Robinson, who lived behind my mom's house, was an artist. He just never had the opportunity to develop it. Fletcher Robinson was an artist. musicians, dancers. So I saw them all the time growing up, even though I was in an impoverished and economically poor area. We were rich in art and culture. But that continued too on through high school. So I took art all through elementary school, all through high school, and that's what I majored in high school. And I was fortunate enough to get an athletic scholarship to go to DePaul University, but I went there to become an art educator and artist.
Could you discuss your approach to different mediums and how textiles inform your work across different mediums?
Yeah, I was fortunate because I had a good high school art program that was never differentiated between fine arts and crafts. And then I early on was exposed to African textiles and African art, and I knew I couldn't articulate it very well, but I knew that it was a part of my cultural heritage. Because my mother was a quilter. She came up from South Carolina and she made quilts as well as many other things. And so I was around that aspect of textile, so that as I became familiar with African textiles and kente and dire and bogalapini and kubakal, then it was just very natural for me to respond to those particular images. And so when I had the chance to begin to go there for 10 study tours, starting in '73, it just solidified my appreciation for traditional African textiles, and wanted to find a way that I can incorporate that into my work. So having helped my mother make quilts when I was younger and do the pinning of the fabric and on the pattern, it was just a natural thing to me. And I loved the color, loved the technique, loved the process. So even though I took drawing and painting and sculpture, I had no difficulty seeing the similarities, relationship between craft techniques as well as the fine arts technique that was emphasized more in Western art. But I learned early also that it was the craft techniques of weaving and textile and carving and casting and bronze work and metal work that were the skills that the captured indentured servants and slaves brought to the New World. And so that became an integral part of my appreciation as I broadened my aesthetic value, go beyond Western art to include non-Western and particularly African. And looking at the textiles, looking at the carving, looking at the various aspects, it was just a very natural thing to me to make sure that it always remained a part of my my visual language.
How did your experience visiting Goree Island influence your portable shrine to the Middle Passage? And what's your selection process for your objects guided by? Where do you typically source your objects?
You know, growing up and being raised by a single mother with 5 other siblings, we were accustomed to finding use for things that other people may throw away or discard or be secondhand. But that way of looking at life and to the very natural part of my growing up too. So I found even before fully understanding the connection with Africa, I found it very natural to make things with my hand and to use things that other people would throw away, because I knew that there was energy and power in all materials and things, and that in a modern society like we were in, it became a throwaway society, but we discard things that still have function and use. And so it's very natural for me to look and tap into the energy and power that's still within those items and objects that I see or find that other people may say have no more availability of use. And so that learning was early and constant. Even before I could articulate or know the exact routes of all the slave routes, I was fully aware that I was African as a kid both from the church, from the playground, from the music, from the playing, from the singing, the games that we played. And so I had that wonderful comforting sense of having a sense of self and being connected to a larger form. So that understanding was there because I'd already, by the time I got to Africa in '73, I was already teaching African art and teaching African art. Just I had not had that direct experience. But I knew the connection.
Did you get to go in 1973? Where did you go?
I went to Ghana, Nigeria, and Senegal. Matter of fact, at that time, I had started to, had taught elementary and high school, and then had gone back to my undergraduate school at DePaul University in Greencastle, Indiana. And even though we didn't have a great, large, well, in fact, I was the only full-time Black faculty there, but we had an African Studies program that I was helping to coordinate. And it was through that I developed with some other teachers of African literature and African history, a grant to take teachers over to Africa to study and incorporate that material into their curriculum in the Indiana public school system. So when I got there, I knew, well, I couldn't say that. I knew what I was hoping to see. I had no idea the impact it would have on me spiritually and physically, as it does most African Americans or African descent when you first go back to the motherland. So having a chance to go to Goree Island, Mina, and Cape Coast, Slave Castle, and interact with the scholars and the artisans there, and gain that deeper understanding, it impacted me greatly. There's nothing like, and here today, I can re-feel the feeling it felt when I stood in the door of no return and looking out over that body of water, knowing that ancestors had crossed into those bellies of those ships through that door and populated the new world and built the new world. So it was powerfully affecting me to the point that I carry it with me almost every place I go. So in the late 60s, the portable shrine and homage to Willis Passage began with just a couple of found objects. And it's evolved and grown since the late 60s, because I did the first shrine with 3 items at the Dayton Convention Center just prior to my leaving Dayton to go to Indiana to teach at my undergraduate school in 1970. So it has been there, and about once a year, or certainly once every 2 years, I have an opportunity to reinstall that shrine, which now numbers over 100 pieces of found object, and it takes about anywhere from an hour and a half to 2 hours. That is a cleansing experience. That when these pieces are laying in boxes or on the floor waiting for me to assemble them, I wait for the feeling to come as to how they're going to be assembled, and then go through that process of that hour and a half to 2 hours of placing these pieces where they need to be or where they should be, as a tribute to not only the ancestors that I know, but also the ancestors I did not know, and also the ancestors who did not make it to the New World, who lay at the bottom of the ocean that changed the whole ecosystem, because of its number. So it's my way of not knowing exactly where I'm from on the continent, other than just being tall and skinny, and people saying I probably was Wallop or Mandingo, but not knowing, I carry a satisfaction that whoever it was, someone made it through, or I would not be here. And that I am blessed to have that lineage and that heritage, because that means I'm a part of the first people, and I'm a continuation of the first civilization, and that all of that potential is also in me. And then my task is to recall and remember and to pass on what I can to the next generation. That wonderful experience at Go Ray, wonderful experience at Almena and Cape Coast, as well as just walking and living and working among the various people I had a chance to meet and interact with. Just that fuels me and nurtures me and gives me my energy, and also gives me that internal self-confidence that no matter where I go in the world and no matter what room I'm in, that I can feel a wholeness and a selfness and a confidence that I can be. And that for one glorious time, I lived, I experienced, and this is how I have expressed that existence. So the Portable Shrine in Homage to the Middle Passage is a personal piece that's very important to me that I get to assemble once a year or every couple of years. And I'm thinking of how can I put it into a more permanent form to lead.
That's extremely powerful. In a way, it's a sculpture that's, or an installation that is ever alive, right? Because you're perpetually installing it.
Yeah.
You once described your work as being approached with deliberate abandonment and most concerned with visual impact. So how do you reach a sense of completion with this intuitive process?
Well, that's an excellent question, and I've had students and grad students and fellow artists ask me that, and it's not a complex form, because I remember asking some of my mentors, Charlie Weiss and Romare Beard and Samuel Lewis and Lois Maylou Jones, I would question and ask them, as well as sit to their feet and listen. But in terms of that approach, we all have had a training to a certain degree, and I learned early on that knowing about form and design and color and the various theories is fine. It's how we speak through that visual language. But I learned early on too that the material and the feeling and the concept has as much to do with how I'm going to express something as much as that learned knowledge, and that I place a greater emphasis and importance not only on the technique and the process that I may have learned or been taught, than on what I'm trying to say through the material and what I'm trying to say through the concept. And so there has to be a happy balance between acquired knowledge and that intuitive feeling that a creative person tries to utilize when expressing something personal or something of importance to him or her. And so I place a greater emphasis upon the feeling and the thought than I do the process or the technique. But anyone can learn the process of musical scale or learn the process or learn how to draw. But like I've been taught that, okay, now that you know how to draw, what is it you have to say? What is it you have to say? And so in terms of the process, I'm one of those intuitive kind of artists where maybe you liken it more to a jazz musician, where you have that opportunity to do that solo, yet it's a familiar tune that anyone can recognize. But what you're doing in between the notes is that personal expression. And sometimes even the rest, and not doing anything, but just pausing can be a part of that expression. And so that's like the negative space in a drawing or a painting, or where you set an object, the space in between the object is as important as the objects that are set in there. So I learned to trust that and to trust that feeling I said when I'm working, the piece will tell me when it's finished, more so than me telling the piece that it's finished. And I learned to trust that and to rely on that intuition and that freedom of expression and the confidence inside my gut and inside my mind working together to say when a piece has put itself together in the form that's best to be for it to exist.
How has your participation in leadership within the National Conference of Artists shaped your career?
Oh, wow, wow. You know, I thought about that. It confirmed. I was fortunate, can you imagine, in April of '73, it was the first time I made contact with the National Conference of Artists, which came from a colleague of mine at University of Wisconsin, Frida High, at a conference at Notre Dame University for colleges. And she said at the end of that conference, well, I'll see you next week. I said, next week? This is my professional conference. Oh no, there's an NCA meeting next week. What's NCA? Somebody at Howard University in Aldrich Hall. I went back to my university and says, hey, I went to the wrong meeting. I should be going next week to Howard University. There's a group called the National Conference of Artists. But, and the university was kind enough to give me additional funds to go to the meeting I should have been going to. But it was one of the most meaningful gatherings I've ever attended as a man and as an artist. And the reason for that is that just imagine, I'm teaching at a university, a small private university, teaching African art, and the traditional drawing, painting, ceramic. And I walk into a room where the people who I've been teaching about were there working and sharing and interacting together. Walk in a room and there's Louis Malou Jones and Floyd Coleman and Jeff Donaldson of the Afro-Cobra group, Elizabeth Cadlett, Ernie Crislow, David Driskell. Wow. And so to walk into that room and be at that 3-day meeting just reaffirmed that I was on the right track, and that I feel that being an African artist is probably one of the greatest gifts I've been given, to be able to work and express myself as an artist and as a man. So it was very profound, because it not only confirmed where I was headed and what I was doing, but it also fed me for the rest of my existence, even to today, because those artists and those people that nurtured me, wow. I remember being tapped on my right shoulder at that meeting by a lady by the name of B.J. Montgomery, and said, can you step out into the hall? We want to talk with you. And I stepped out into the hall, and now we were being led by Floyd Coleman and Louis Malou Jones and others as leaders of the National Conference of Artists. And this lady said, look, we've been watching you, and we would like to see if you'd be willing to run for second vice president for this organization and get involved. I said, I've never been involved with any organization. So I don't know. She said, well, hey, we think you have something, and we'll work with you. We will help you. We'd like for you to run as first vice president. We're going to run John Unye Lockhart, who I heard about for years, a decade. And we're going to ask him to be a second vice president. And we're going to ask Dr. Murray DePillars, an Afro-Cobra artist from Virginia Commonwealth, to be the president. Would you run? Mr. Coleman, Louis Malou Jones, they need to go back into their classroom, and they've been helping for this point, and we want you to sort of step in and continue what they were doing. So it gave me probably the best contact and colleagues and friends that have been friends since that day, and have been leaders and nurturers of me and my work. And Margaret Burroughs, who just came into my head, what will your legacy be? What can you do beside make your art? How can you help the artist community and help the community in which you're in? So what I've done and what I've attempted to do has been reinforced by that connection with the National Conference of Artists, which I hope will be resurfacing this particular year, particularly after last March when Dr. David Driskell came to New Orleans to be the keynote speaker and encourage us last March at one of his last public presentations to reach back and pick this organization up. Of course, he still has some new work to do. But yeah, the NCA, well, not to mention getting me to South America, getting me to Ghana and to Senegal as an organization. Matter of fact, there's a plaque of NCA that now adorns the wall at the entrance of Gorée Island that was placed there because of that conference, that connection. Yeah, the National Conference of Artists has been just a wonderful existing organization that fed us for years and nurtured us and encouraged us as to what we should be doing. I know for me, I labored under a main concept of what am I to do with the gifts I've been given? And that would be to create, to make art, and to share it. And that's been reinforced by NCA. And making that connection, like the vessels that are here, that are inspired from the Kuba cloth and the ancestors. Yeah, it's been a wonderful experience. And the best one coming together for me was that confirmation I got from interacting with and being guided by the National Conference of Artists.
How would you describe the power of art to improve society, specifically to connect the diaspora? I'm going to ask that again because there's noise in the background. How would you describe the power of art to improve society, specifically to connect the diaspora?
You know, it's vital. As a matter of fact, I say all the time, the arts have a vital role to play in rebuilding of our community and rebuilding of our nation. And I tell you why is that my training beside the arts also was very much humanities oriented. Art, music, dance, drama, creative writing. And when we looked at the African tradition, we saw that all the arts were interrelated. Art, music, dance, drama, the creative writing of the spoken word. And that I found early on that it was through the arts that man transmitted those things of value, both aesthetically, philosophically, spiritual, came through the arts, and the arts was always there. And so I see if we properly utilize the art, it will help us in doing what we need to do to improve our community, improve our nation, and improving the world. And in terms of, and I share all the time, as I go into the schools of communities of public presentation, private presentation, that through the art, we can not only know ourselves, but we also can know others and learn how to appreciate others. And that the arts reflect the difference and not secondary or inferior from one culture to another. But all people has art, music, dance, drama, creative writing that's worthy of preservation, celebration, and celebration all the time, and still be a part of a multicultural society. To celebrate one's own self is not to deny someone else. Because when you have a sense of who you are, you can also appreciate those who are different than yourself. Yeah, it's very important. And that's one of the reasons why I have enjoyed staying in tune and in touch with the art. because the arts are vital. Arts are vital.
Thanks. So your work is so much about intergenerational diasporic culture, and you've often spoken about honoring ancestors through your work. What message do you have for future generations?
Well, you know, thank you. Touching base with oneself and having a sense of self is the best way to learn how to not only have a quality life and a quality existence, but also to make a meaningful contribution to whatever community and whatever society you're a part of. So I see the arts as being vital for understanding and appreciating self and building what we need to build for the future. It's critical. It's not, it goes beyond art for art's sake. It goes beyond just trying to get work in a museum. It's really about people and culture and places and things that are vital.
Thank you, Bing.
My pleasure.
I believe that concludes our conversation. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about that maybe came up in the images or?
The main thing is that I am just so pleased to see this project move forward of the Porter Colloquium. It's one of the better things we have going on in terms of art and culture in our community in the United States. And the fact that the effort was made for this to continue, and particularly at this particular time, and also in celebration of one of its primary founders, Dr. Floyd Coleman, who was so significant for many, many years and will be for the future of all the people he has nurtured and all the people that have come through the Porter Colloquium. I am very encouraged and pleased to see this continue and honored to be a part of this particular colloquium.
Thank you. It's been an honor to speak with you, and I'd like to reiterate your gratitude for the organizers of this colloquium for the invitation to participate and to connect. So thank you again so much.
My pleasure, my pleasure. And I look forward to seeing you here in the States, or either we're gonna have the next meeting